אפשר להשם צדיקים יבואו גבול.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, good morning, dear members and our wonderful guests. So today we study Parashat Mishpatim, and it's a Parashat that situated right after the awe-inspiring events at Mount Sinai, which happened in the previous Torah portion, Parashat Yitro. And it serves as a really stark transition from the heights of spiritual ecstasy to the planes of daily obligation and ethical conduct. The title of the portion, Mishpatim, simply translates as the laws. And this parsha sets out a series of laws which some scholars also call the covenant code. And this shift from the dramatic revelation when all people directly experience God's presence to the detailed legislation is not just a story unfolding, but rather it is a profound explanation of our relationship with the divine. These laws can be categorized into several broad themes, reflecting various aspects of daily life and community organization, such as criminal laws, and these include assault and bodily harm, laws related to physical assault, including penalties for injuring or killing a person, murder versus manslaughter and distinction between these two acts. Laws of slavery. These are the laws that concerning Hebrew slaves and regulation concerning their treatment, including the rule that they should be freed in seventh year, and also the non-Hebrew slaves and laws regarding them. Another category is property and theft, penalties for stealing, property damage, borrowing and custody, and rules regarding the responsibilities of someone who borrows or looks after another property. Another category is personal injury and damages. And this is physical injuries to people and injuries by animals, social justice laws, protection of the vulnerable, special provisions for the protection of widows, orphans, and foreigners, emphasizing the importance of caring for the vulnerable in society. Fair treatment laws against taking advantage of the weak, including prohibitions against charging interest and loans to fellow Israelites, and rules about returning collateral to its owner. Moral and ethical conduct, slander and false witness, bribery, religious and ritual laws, such as Shabbat observance and festivals, regulations about observance of three pilgrimage festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. There are also dietary laws, specifically a prohibition relating to eating milk and meat, boiling a young goat in the mother's milk, which later tradition interpreted as a separation of meat and dairy. And then the laws that are concerning God and God's altar, introducing against making treaties with inhabitants of the land and their gods, and directives for building altars for God. And if you feel like you are already falling asleep and you think, oh dear, Rabbi is going to give one of those super boring sermons, I don't blame you. Not everyone finds these laws to be too exciting to study. In today's world, we often guided towards meditation and various spiritual practices as a path to inner peace and connection with the divine. These experiences are valued for the personal enlightenment and tranquility they bring. However, the Torah focuses on a very different aspect of spirituality, the importance of law and duty. It teaches us that the true spiritual fulfillment comes not so much from the solitary moments of reflection, but from our commitment to living according to a set of divine laws and obligations that guide our actions and interactions in the world. And that's not boring at all. I believe that it's much deeper than we tend to think about it, and it offers something that was pretty much lost in our modern world. The revelation at Sinai from last week's Torah portion might be seen as a peak of spiritual experience, where the Israelites encounters God's presence in the most direct and overwhelming way possible. This event could easily be perceived as the ultimate goal of religious life, a moment of intense connection and clarity. However, Parashat Mishpatim immediately follows with the laws that are often seen as mundane and concerned with the minute of daily life. But it challenges us to reconsider what it means to be in relationship with the sacred. This suggests that the divine is not only found in moments of transcendent awe, but is deeply embedded in our daily lives. It is through the observance of these laws, through the commitment to justice, compassion, and communal responsibility that we continually experience God's presence. It invites us to see the sacred not as a removed from the world, but as deeply interwoven with all our actions. The laws of Mishpatim, they serve as a bridge between the heavenly and the earthly, guiding us on how to infuse our daily lives with holiness. It is through the detailed work of applying these laws, through the effort we put into living in accordance with halakha, that we maintain and strengthen our connection with the divine. In this light, revelation at Mount Sinai is not a one-time event, but it is an ongoing process. It unfolds not only in the moments of spiritual enlightenment and warm feelings in our heart, but more importantly, in the diligent application of God's commandments in the world. The real challenge and opportunity for holiness lie in our ability to carry the essence of Sinai in every aspect of our lives, to find the sacred in ordinary, and to commit ourselves to a life of mitzvot. Rabbi Dania Rutenberg gives an example of a practical application of this idea. She writes in her commentary to the Parashat Mishpatim as follows: religious practices are meant to transform who we are and how we live in relation to the world. The Code of Jewish Law, or Shulchan Aruch, specifically in Yoreh Deah 249:14, recommends donating a little bit of money, even just a few coins, every weekday morning before prayer. After doing so, it becomes harder to pray not only for our own personal needs and warm, fuzzy feelings, and to forget about the suffering and injustice outside of the door. Of course, awareness of the big picture is packed into liturgy, but the act of giving imprints itself on our consciousness, and it becomes harder to slip back into the familiar litany of me, me, me. That is a very practical example of how the mundane monetary laws outlined in the Parashat Mishpatim bring profound spiritual transformation in our daily lives. I know it's a bit challenging to donate coins these days. I never have coins anymore. Maybe we need to bring a card reader instead. So petition Irv in this regard. But I'm absolutely convinced, based on my personal experience and the wisdom that was passed down to us from the rabbis of previous generations, that halakha, the commitment to Jewish law, is a spiritual practice. Last week, at the end of Shabbat, we gathered at Seudah Shlishit, and there we discussed the topic of responsibilities between employer and employee. And if you don't know, and I'm sure that some of you don't know, that every week on Saturday, on Shabbat, between Mincha and Mariv, I give a short teaching on various subjects of Jewish ethics. So if you're interested, I invite you to participate. It happens every week. And it's very light and it's very approachable, but it can give you some food for thought. And actually it can impact the rest of your week. So we talked about the ways in which employees should be honest and diligent in performing their work duties according to the Jewish ethical conduct. And we also talked about the generational differences and why the younger generations, like myself as a millennial, or next generation that appears to people to be less hardworking than the previous generation. And I don't think that this is necessarily a problem of a specific generation. And I definitely think that parents are also responsible for the way their children grow up. Meaning that if you're unhappy with your children and grandchildren work ethics, Maybe you can reflect on how you actually brought them up. But I can't help but think that some of the values of obligation and dedication were lost, really lost in recent decades, especially with the advent of modern New Age type of spirituality. New Age spirituality is characterized by its openness to new ideas and its blending of various spiritual and mystical traditions, and its emphasis on individual freedom of spiritual exploration. There is nothing wrong with that, and it can be a source of great inspiration, but it really highlights personal experience and choice over the sense of commitment and obligation. I happen to believe that our connection with the divine is not measured by the intensity of singular spiritual experience, but by the consistency and depth of our engagement with the commandments. And if you find these laws of Mishpatim and the Torah in their entirety boring, don't be surprised that your children are not excited about them either. In our day and time, when spirituality is much more focused on the individual rather than being part of community, I believe that it's our obligation to teach the next generation about the importance and beauty of adhering to a set of shared practices and principles and committing oneself to a path defined by collective wisdom and obligations that extend beyond the self. These commitments are not constraints, but vital elements that deepen our spiritual life and forge a more profound, enduring type of spirituality. Torah is a guide for living a life infused with the presence of the sacred in every moment and every action. It is not an easy path, and it is far from effortless. It requires deep intellectual engagement, steadfast consistency, and determination. This demanding nature of spiritual practice is a fundamental aspect of its value. The work we put in understanding the Torah's teaching, the discipline required to live by its laws, and the perseverance needed to uphold its values in every aspect of our lives, these are elements that transform our spiritual practice from a passive experience into an active, lived reality. Moreover, the difficulty and complexity of this path makes the reward it offers all the more profound. The sense of achievement, the depth of connection, and the personal growth that come from engaging with the Torah's demands are truly unparalleled. This is because true spirituality, true spiritual growth is not found in transient moments of ease and comfort, but in the ongoing, dedicated effort to live a life aligned with the sacred principles. This Shabbat, I wish all of us to come closer to the realization that the Torah's invitation to a life of spiritual rigor is not a burden, but a gift. It offers us a path to genuine transformation, where the challenges we face and the work we put in become the very means through which we find deeper meaning, connection, and fulfillment. Thus, while the path may not be easy, it is indeed rich with the potential for personal elevation, guiding us toward a life that is truly infused with the presence of the sacred in every moment and every action of our lives. Let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom.